Every week at Rhino, we help homeowners and contractors start their extension and new build projects on safe ground. You tell us what you want to build and where, and we design a foundation that works. But what happens if the house has already been built?
Subsidence happens for many reasons and is usually driven by forces beyond our control, such as tectonic activity, sediment compaction, groundwater movements, and even mining.
Zooming into your neighbourhood, and these problems are exacerbated by changing building use over time, additional neighbouring properties, and even tree roots. If your house is sinking, it's likely that the foundations have become inadequate for the build over time. It's a daunting concept, but luckily here at Rhino, we've mastered the art of the underpin. Underpinning can take on many different forms, the most historically popular being a simple mass fill of concrete around the existing base. But for specific areas of weakness like this porch, with paintwork cracking at the corners, we can take our piling expertise to design a solution that's efficient, minimizing resources, costs, and disruptions. Combining regular vertical bottom-driven piles with Raker piles or batter piles, which are angled underneath the existing foundation. Usually 2 piles this close together is a big red flag, as that soil's got to go somewhere and ends up getting tightly compacted. That's why these Rakers are going in at a 45 to 70 degree angle, allowing for a wider support to hold up the existing foundations. Then, as usual, we'll use our cages, beams and concrete to attach it all together so they stand the test of time. Let's check out an example on the outskirts of Manchester where 2 of our finest operators are starting on a new project. So first up is excavation. There's nothing glamorous here, just some hard graft to break through the floor and expose the area around the existing foundations, making sure to create enough room for piles in 2 directions, as well as to eventually house the cages. Dig it out, fill the barrow, into the skip, rinse and repeat. Next up, we've got our bread and butter, piling. This involves using an air compressor and a pneumatic mold to drive hollow tubes with a pointed end deep into the ground, and then welding on follower piles until we reach suitable ground. This process isn't the quietest. For a job of this size with cooperative ground, we can keep the disruption minimal with just a few hours of noise. I'm sure your neighbours will agree, a few hours of noise is nothing compared to your house sinking and tanking their property values too. This tripod looking thing to the left is going to hold our block and tackle, a very useful bit of kit used to hoist them all out of the ground, which on this job went as deep as 4 meters down, although you will see later that sometimes these guys will just brave it and pull it up by hand. We stop them all when the pile hits something called set refusal, when it's securely lodged in good ground and you can't push it much further without affecting the integrity of the pile. And it's exactly the same process for this next section, which is what differentiates this project as a Raker piled underpin. We aim the piles closest to the wall at a 45 to 70 degree angle, so the pointed tip ends up well underneath the building, helping to push against the 2 directions that the house wants to sink, downwards and inwards. This requires intense concentration and collaboration to guide them all on the right path, making sure to hit the sweet spot away from the straight piles and the existing house foundations. When the piles are all set, we'd usually use our big circular saw to cut down the piles in order to fit the cages in, but in these tight spaces, our best bet is to burn the tops off the piles using the welder. We're still going to need this saw, however, to cut up our special nano-sized cage. They can be tied into the pairs of piles with L-bars. When we fill up these piles and close the beams in concrete, it's one continuous piece with much better integrity. Now with everything in place, it's time for some concrete. If you're in Manchester or the surrounding areas, you might be so lucky as to get some Rhino concrete delivered by only the most handsome of wagon drivers like this one. He even knows the recipe for concrete, so he's going to whip some up and bring it straight over to you. Let's uncover what Chris and Phil have left for Kev and Kanan. We've also got Sean joining to help us barrow it in. As always, Kev is obsessively keeping the driveways clean, while Sean runs the concrete into the pockets, crucially filling up those piles and making sure to vibrate it properly and get rid of any air pockets that might threaten the standard of this base. So that's that, fixed foundations and a building that you can trust to stay standing. Hopefully this has helped give you some clarity on underpinning and your specific projects. But if you have any further questions, we've got a great team of estimators, structural engineers, contracts managers. Check out our other videos on all things groundworks and piling, and we can't wait to get out to your site and get you out the ground.